This week we only had two trades, one on AU and one on NJ, but we have not made much progress. This week was supposed to be the week where we recover and probably get back to break even or 2% profit, but we failed. Like this week was where opportunities were coming to recover and profit, but we were not in the best state. We failed to take advantage of opportunities that arose this week, which caused us to have issues. That's really more or less what happened this week. We were supposed to, like the trades that happened this week, most of them were profitable, but we just couldn't take advantage of them properly. AU. Trade on AU was, I don't regret it honestly. It closed beyond my CTC and we closed the trade. Very simple. Like no, I was not emotionally attached to this trade. I was not emotionally attached to the outcome, even if we went back to TP. I was not emotionally attached to the outcome for this one because I obeyed my rules here. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sync schematic or pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. Enter there nicely. Is either the open or the close, either the open or the close are the in the range of 10 pips between the first candle. So this is one. All the candles, either an open or a close, must be within this range. So the close, or at least the open for this fourth candle was in it, even if the the close was not. But as far as the four are more or less in a line, like it must be like more or less in a line for it to be qualified. So this one was qualified and we entered the trade. Like the CTC is more or less this was the CTC I placed for this trade, but CTC most of the time is the close, like the lowest close or open of the pattern, and stop loss is the lowest point of the pattern. I was a bit greedy here, but it's not bad. But anyhow, it closed beyond the CTC and I closed the trade. And after that, it went to TP. I'm thinking of bringing my SL to the CTC instead of just closing trade outright. But in this case, I wouldn't mind, even if it went back to TP. I really don't mind. I was not emotionally attached to this trade. It was just, at this point, it was Monday, I was very, clear-headed. It was going, like, even if it went back to my direction, but my CTC has saved me more time. So it's more like a cost for the strategy, It's helped me to reduce my losses, but in the reduction, things like this happen. So I'm more or less used to this. Like, close beyond CTC, then went to TP. But at least CTC has helped me more times than it has failed me. So I was not really bothered too much by this one. But the trade on NG was where I fucked up. There's a quote I read on Pinterest, I guess. It said, "The market punishes the greedy and the fearful and rewards the disciplined and the patient." And I think that's very, very true. Very, very true. In this case, most of the time, I'm not someone that's greedy, I'm fearful. So it's a matter of if I'm not in the best state of mind, if I'm in a losing streak, what happens is I tend to not even place trades. I tend to shy away from trading instead of over trading. Like if you are greedy, more or less you would over trade, but if you are not, you most likely will be fearful and you tend to step back, you pull back a bit. And I think I'm that kind of person. I tend to withdraw. I become more fearful, I become more cautious, I become extremely conservative. So it's not like, even if the trade is qualified, I'm really watching it. I want to know what happened next. I try to make sure most likely 90% chance that trade is going to go well before I put the trade on. Even if that's not good. That's simply not just good. That's not what my strategy is made for. It's not made for my subjective judgment. In that subjective judgment, I'm now interrupting the strategy's normal profitability. In this kind of scenario now, entry was CTC. The original entry was about 4.7 at the boundary here. Yeah. The original entry was around like 5.0. and my CTC was, I think, somewhere here. Yeah. So this was when my CTC was. This was when my CTC was at this level. So I was late to the entry. I think it was Friday. I was late to the entry, so I ended up entering in a good spot, entering at the CTC. So the problem was, I don't know why I was fearful, honestly. February, what happened? Exactly the same thing that happened this month happened. The first 3 weeks were more or less losses. We ended up near 4% down. Then the last week, I managed to get like 3 or 4 profitable trades back to back, which helped me recover and give me like a 2% profit. Even if I was like cutting off the trades in the middle, because I was getting a lot of profitable trades, and most of the trades, there were news, there was election, there was a lot of things were happening, so I was not really able to catch the full play. So even like if I let all the February last week trade go, they would have probably ended up like 2-3% profit, but they ended up around like 1.5% profit. Even 1.5% profit more or less, giving me around 4% down at the beginning of March. So March now, March did it for the month around like 2.6 or so. And this week, if AU had gone well, that's 2%. If NG has gone well, that's under 2%. Then I missed, because of this trade that caused me a lot of issues, I now missed another profitable trade on AU again. So like the 3 profitable trades, that was like my strategy had given me all the trades I needed to at least be break even, but most likely be 2-3% profit. My strategy had given me all the trades that I needed. Even if most of the losses came first, the winning trades that came in a cluster at the end of the month, which is, I don't know why it's happening. Last year, all the winning trades were happening at the beginning of the month. So I was closing early, then just leaving the rest of the month instead of trading them. So that was what happened last year. This year, January was just terrible. February, most of the losses came. Then last week, profitable months. Same thing happened. Same thing happened this month. But the profitable trade that was supposed to like take advantage of to come my like equity curve up, I was messing them up. But that EU, I wouldn't blame myself for that one. That one was clean, was fair, no mistakes were made, it was fine. But for NG, what happened here is this is our CTC. It closed on more or less on the CTC line, and that's a problem. Not like you set it like, okay, if it closes if it closes beyond 8240, I'll leave the trade. If it closes beyond 8240, I'll leave the trade. But it just closes on 8240. Like, it is outrageous how often this thing occurs. Like, it's just mind blowing. Like, you just set one peep, one line, and just close directly on the line. Like, wow. Wow, dude. So in those kind of situations, it's very difficult for me to make the judgment. Should I close the trade? Should I not? Should I reduce my SL to see what happens? Those are the options I have when a trade closes on the line or beyond. Close the trade, reduce SL. Those are the 2 options. Close the trade or reduce the SL. And in this case, I chose to close the trade. But in my mind, I knew, because the pattern was very interesting. First candle closed. This was the first breakout. Fine and good. The next candle was having issues continuing the bull run. The third candle still didn't manage to continue the bull run, but this indicates more or less there's a lot of buying force. But at this level here, there are a lot of sellers. There are a lot of sellers at the boundary. There are a lot of sellers at this level. A lot of sellers at this level. So more like the buying force was being absorbed by the sellers. So like, since the sellers are absorbing the current buying force, if they are not able to absorb all of the buying force, the bull run will continue. That I knew that was more or less the dynamics of the situation. So if the market sank down, that would mean that the sellers have managed to absorb the bulls. If the market did not and more or less continued in its range, we would have not entered the trade. But that was not what I was waiting for. I was not waiting for a conclusion to be reached. I placed the order and it's triggered fine and good on the 4th. 1, 2, 3. The third is qualifying candle. After I take candle, I enter the trade. I was planning to enter on 5-0 and making my CTC 4-7 or 4-0, but market sank quickly, so I just entered at 4-0. So it's so close at 4-0, which was the same CTC. So I closed the trade instead of reducing my SL. No, I closed the trade. That was the option I chose. I chose to close the trade while I also had used SL as option. I closed the trade. That was not really the problem. The problem is not the judgment I made. It's not the call. The problem is I was fearful. It's because of fear. That's why I rushed to. That's why I was fearful in the decision making. The only reason why I closed the trade was because I was afraid of the loss I would take. That was why I closed the trade, not out of rational judgment. I was afraid. I didn't want to take losses. But something I like. It took me a while to get shit together back. So because of this trade, I was very like bothered. I was like, okay, it was call right. I was watching the trade, and I was just seeing it gradually get to my TP. I was like, bro, why? I knew that I was afraid I was making a decision. If I was not afraid, I wouldn't have been bothered like AU. I would have been calm, like, oh, okay, that's just how it is. You move on. But I couldn't move on because it was a decision made out of fear. And as I was going in the original direction, I was like, I knew it was decision made out of fear. I was not trying to like validate my fear, like hoping that okay, to sink. Don't worry, I was right. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to make money, and that's a major fuck up. That was where I fucked up. I fucked up because I was afraid, and that fear caused me to be extremely conservative and not really want to be in the game. That's the thing. You have to be in the game. You have to have money on the line. That's the point. It's not being right of the direction. That's the point. So seeing this was not very interesting. Was not very reasonable. I didn't like it at all. So that caused me to be sad, I guess, for a couple of days. No, this happened on Thursday, so I was not really in the mood at all. I was not really in the mood, so there was a trade on AU that qualified, and I was not really mentally there to take advantage of the move. It was a upthrust, yeah, it was an upthrust. Breakout, break in, okay. Next candle, not bad. Third candle, this is the third candle. I was more or less supposed to enter about here, even if most likely the trade would have not worked out. Like you didn't really know what was going to happen. Like, oh, this retracement too deep is most likely not going to come back. The rules I have for this is like, as far as the trade has not gone to thirds of the candles have not gone to thirds of the trade, I'm still going to enter the trade. So in this case, it hasn't more or less gone up to thirds now. Yeah, it closed, yeah, more or less to thirds. But the close is around here, so it's all good. It's all good. So because of that, I was not vigilant enough to enter this trade on Friday. And part of me was like, oh, it's already Friday, so like, oh, forget, you know, there's no, probably no place, probably. Very incompetent sometimes. But anyhow, because of NJ's psychological issues, I failed to probably enter AU. It was a mistake.